I am live. Good evening, everyone. Happy Valentine's Day. Welcome to Tuesday night raw Q&A with me, Dr. Andi. Hello, everyone. Let me see. I'm a little more light. Wait, how's that? Yeah. Okay. I was just about to shut this off. 6 p.m. snuck up on me today. There we go. Okay. How's everybody? I've missed you. It's been a couple weeks. I hope you enjoyed our special guests, Neely Piazza and Dana Chick. Hi, Keisha. Hi, Jessica. Welcome this evening. If you're new or catching this in a replay, I'm Dr. Andi Harper. I am a doctor of chiropractic and a certified animal chiropractor. I've been in practice adjusting dogs for the last 20 years. And the vast amount of this information, if I know anything, I learned from my clients over the last 20 years, or I learned from my own animals, my own experience, what I've noticed anecdotally, getting my hands on so many animals over the years. It's not meant to be veterinary advice. You all have your veterinarians. Go and ask them questions too. And if your animal needs to see them, take them there. Otherwise, maybe this will spur your education and maybe you'll learn something. And maybe you'll go out and do some more of your own research. That's really what I'm here for, is fun conversation, fun community, and looking at things differently in the dog world care. Hello, Kyle. Yes, happy Valentine's Day to you too. Everyone's wishing happy Valentine's Day. It's so cute. Okay, so while you're formulating your questions, I had to do something tonight that was so hard. So I'm going to tell you. And if you're new, say hi to everybody. Throw your questions up in the chat. And we will do our best to, and I say we, because everybody in the chat can participate here, give you a helping hand in feeding raw. You have a joint musculoskeletal issue. We can talk about chiropractic. And yeah, we'll just see where it goes. But I had to do something so hard tonight. Here, let me change my top chat to live chat. Otherwise, I don't see everything. YouTube makes me mad that way. So if you've been with me at all, if you're on my email list, I talk about my wired hair mini dachshund named Torchy. And he turned a year on January 7th, and we have been struggling with possibly EPI, which is exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, which means the exocrine portion of his pancreas does not make all the enzymes it should to help with digesting of food. There's a test out there. I have not done it. We can go into why I'm not much of a test person and should you test and not test for certain things, blah, blah, blah. But there is a test out there. I haven't done it. But I have been listening to Adored Beast, and I'm blanking on her name at the moment, but the gal that started the Adored Beast supplement line. And SIBO can imitate EPI. So SIBO, as in small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, which you may have heard for people. Yes, dogs can get that too. Okay, great. So I, as I do with my animals, play with their supplements. And so I pulled him off of his porcine pancreatic enzymes. I don't know, when I got back from Phoenix. So last week, and he was doing really, really good. And then we went over to his breeders, and they gave him tons and tons of cookies. And at 2 a.m., which in the Chinese medicine clock is when the liver comes online. It's when the liver does a lot of its work. It's between 2 and 4 a.m. He puked all over the bed, like all over the bed, all over the floor. We were up cleaning blankets, getting him cleaned up. He then went in his kennel. He sleeps half in our bed, half in the kennel. Then I think he puked in the morning. I fed him breakfast and dinner. He puked this morning. and he puked this evening. So I did not feed him dinner tonight. Oh, so hard. I tell pet parents all the time, stop feeding them. Things keep coming out of the top end or the bottom end. Stop feeding them. And today I had to, Julianne Lee. Thank you. Thank you, Kyle. She's the founder and formulator for Adored Beast. But I had to do it. So this isn't, when I tell you don't feed your animal, it is something that I do. And I've done it with my other ones periodically, right? But this one was so hard. And so I actually put him in his kennel, covered him up, fed everybody, and he knew it was going on, right? He knew it. But I had to stop putting stuff in him. And then it did hit me, back to Julianne Lee. She was talking about one of her dogs that they struggle with his GI and digestion. And when he has a flare up or a lot of evenings, I forget the details, she would give him goat's milk with gut soothe. So he did get he got something. He got some goat's milk with gut soothe in it. I can talk really. Which he was sorely disappointed with. But I needed to give his digestion a break. We needed to stop putting food in. It needed to take a break, and actually put him back on his enzymes the last 2 days, and I'm going to pull him back off of them. I wonder if they're contributing too. But this is how I handle my animals, and you may want to consider it's trial and error. You're going to have to try some things, and it may not go fantastic right off the bat, or oops, not so good. After the big vomiting in the middle of the night, Monday, 2 a.m. Monday, maybe he shouldn't have gotten breakfast, and maybe we would have cut off, the more puking. Although I do have a rule in my house that we only puke on the floor. And so the rest of the pukes have been on the floor. So it's just, that's how I play with the energetics of that, because they always seem to puke on the carpet, right? So now in this household, I remind them all the time, they only puke on the floor. It's so hard not feeding them. So we'll see. He got that. We'll see what tomorrow brings. And we'll go from there. That's all. Easy peasy, right? I had a fun, and go ahead and ask some questions, throw them up in the chat. But so Dee Dee's been on the Raw Dog Food Truth podcast. I'm a guest every Monday morning with Dee Dee. She's so generous with her time and does all that podcasting work, which I have been a part of in the past when I've had my own podcast. And that was, a few things in business I swore I would never do again. I would never have my own podcast again. It was so much work. Keisha helped me with that. She did a lot of the hard labor on that. And actually, in the email is an oldie but a goodie in there, and why I hate Valentine's Day. Because I really do actually hate Valentine's Day. But if you're interested, Kyle, there's more energetics in that, because when I did those podcasts, Dr. Andy's World, it was a lot more energetic conversations. And actually, me and my husband have a rule: we only do cards, and we don't go out to dinner. I don't know why anybody would go out to dinner on Valentine's Day and pay higher prices. Okay, but I digress. But anyway, Dee Dee was talking about Dr. Connor Brady's feeding dogs, and I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna flip it open, and we're gonna see what comes up, and we'll talk about it. And this was fun. This is I don't know. I have, honestly, I've just flipped it open. I don't even know. I think I'm in the carbohydrates chapter. I have not started reading this from front to back. There is 500 pages. So we'll see. But in the carbohydrates, these are some take-home points. This was so cool. Where'd it go? Sled dogs on higher carbohydrate diets have more injuries. High starch diets stimulate the formation of struvite crystals in cats, while high protein diets can rectify the issue. Studies show that reducing carbohydrates in diet prevents tumor growth in dogs. But I just thought the sled dogs on higher carbohydrate diets have more injuries. It's fascinating. And it doesn't, I think if you go back into the chapter, it'll tell you how they found out, or, I bet these sled dogs and the teams running the races, like the Iditarod up north, would keep meticulous notes about their animals. The graphic was pretty cute on that. So Kyle asks, why giving too much bones gives a dog diarrhea for a few days? Gave a chicken foot and half hour of chew time in a knuckle bone, and that led to 3 days of loose stool. I would guess that it was less with the bone and more possibly the fat content in the knuckle bone, although knuckle bones don't have that much. It's not like the marrow bones. Ashley says collagen and cartilage in the bones. But collagen and cartilage are made up of protein. So we could go back. Okay, so where does most of the protein digestion occur? And that's in the stomach. So if the stomach is struggling a little bit, sorry, there is something in my eyeball. And Addie gets, okay, so her dog gets loose stool when we give her homemade bone broth. But bone broth can have a pretty high fat content. So is it beef, chicken, turkey, duck, what bone broth? Bone broth can actually have a pretty high fat content. And what I've learned recently and what I've been starting to do, and I need to actually augment my bone broth recipe and get that out, is we can do this. If you just put the bone broth in the slow cooker, let's say we do it that way, and we cook it for 18 hours, you're actually, what's the word I want? The fat. You're actually cooking the fat, and it actually makes the fat go bad. And so I came across this, and I did it on the last batch, and I need to upgrade and get out the bone broth recipe to y'all. I like the Instapot. I actually have an Instapot recipe that makes it so much faster. I love that. But if you still use a pot on the stove or a slow cooker, you actually need to pull the fat that comes up to the top off. Rancid, that was the word I wanted. Get that up and off of there. And then continue cooking it to pull out even more of the collagen. So I just wonder, and the chicken feet, either in the bone broth or has all that skin. So the fat, I go back to the fat content more so than the collagen cartilage, but it's a possibility. Like anything can cause anything, depending on your dog. So that's kind of where I land with that. And if we're having that, we may need to up the HCl and the fat. The HCl is what is lacking if we're having trouble with protein. And then you can get the betaine HCl and give to your animal prior to their meal. You actually want to do it just before they eat. It doesn't have to be a long time. And if it's just easier, it just goes on the food. So betaine HCl for protein, that's stomach. And then the fat's a little bit later, gallbladder. We want to maybe we get strictly a lipase. And I know they do just straight up lipase enzymes. And it doesn't matter if it's people or animal, and enzymes and enzyme. You could do that. You can up all of the digestive enzymes. if it's a, has lipase, amylase, protease, all that in there. But I wonder if it has more to do with the fat or the diarrhea. And Keisha's going to be put in charge of reminding me to update that bone broth recipe. We're actually in the middle of, and I say we because Keisha's doing most of the work, transferring the website onto a different platform. I doubt I'm using these computer words improperly, but we're changing who delivers our emails and all of that. So there's going to be some glitches and stuff, and so hopefully we'll get maybe a new landing page or something with an updated bone broth recipe. And so we can get the rancid fat out of there. You actually don't throw it out. It's actually I don't have the recipe in front of me. Otherwise, I would read it to you. And I don't remember it off the top of my head. But you actually skim it off, and you can use it. You can keep it. And Keisha says we'll keep our glitches to a minimum. We'll do our best, right? So those are my thoughts, Kyle. And Ashley. And the other thing that you can't discard is, it may have been, and this is actually recent and again, anecdotal with my own pack. My senior, and I've had, we'll get to that in a minute. My senior has always been food motivated, but now that he's super senior, and he just thinks I have food all the time. Like, that's just all he thinks I mean, I could be going to the restroom and he's like, you must have food in there. And I don't have any food in there, right? And so I upped his food from 2.5 ounces to 3.5 ounces. It didn't change any of his food behavior during the day, except it gave him diarrhea. So it might have just been too much food that day, and the body was just overwhelmed by the amount. So I took him back down to 2.5 ounces. Diarrhea went away, and he was acting the same. So that day, it could have been too much food. So just kind of keep that in mind. And I think that now that I saw, and this is how I learned things, is through my own animals. Now that I saw that cause and effect, as I hadn't changed anything else, I wonder if this is what people are seeing sometimes when their animals have intermittent diarrhea when they are on a raw food diet. When they're still on a kibble, that's a whole different story, and there could be many things going on there. Yeah. Doesn't happen. So Kyle says, not sure, right? Too much fat, too much food that day. It doesn't happen often, but I don't like when they sometimes get diarrhea. We never like that. It could have just simply been, like too much food that day. Not that Kyle did anything wrong, right? Like, I didn't do anything wrong by upping Gizmo's food. I thought that would make him a little calmer throughout the day. Did not work, right? But we had to try something and see what happens. But when we go with too much food, it can register in the body like too much toxins and gets inflamed, and it needs to leave. It's not a diarrhea story, but one of my favorite stories I learned from a client was cute little Yorkie thing. Super cute, a little heavy, but not too bad. And mom was talking about her anal glands. Anal gland issues. They're working with a homeopathic vet on her anal gland issues. They've actually had to go into conventional vet and get them expressed. Okay, they're so bad they end up in the ER. And the ER, I wish I could remember the name they gave the problem, because I literally said to the woman when she told me, I'm like, now they're just making shit up. Because it was such a lame name they gave this problem, and we might have to remove these anal glands. And this was going on for months. She's getting adjusted. We're talking about food allergies. She was on dehydrated raw, but she would only eat this turkey one. And finally, in the midst of all of this, I asked, well, how much are you feeding her? And they went, oh, we feed her 6 times a day because that's the only way we can get all the food in her that the bag recommends. And I go, okay, well, tomorrow you're not feeding the dog. Like nothing. And I bring this up because the anal glands were involved here. She wasn't getting diarrhea, I don't believe. I don't think there's any stool issues, but the anal glands are also part of the body that eliminates toxins. And the body's like, I can't handle all this food. It's just overwhelming me. We need to, we're throwing toxins into the anal glands. And so literally, like, next day, I'm like, do not feed this dog. And then you're going to feed her this much and this much. And as soon as we cut back to 2 meals a day, even though it was half of what the bag wanted them to feed her, anal glands all cleared up. And it was a few weeks later or a month or 2 later, I don't know. And she's like, oh, the anal glands are back. I'm like, cut back the food. And it cut back the food. And I haven't heard, and they were able to get off the dehydrated and go back on the frozen raw, but they were not trying to overfeed her. She didn't want to eat because she wasn't hungry on the frozen raw, but they could shovel enough of this dehydrated raw in her because she really liked it. So I tried to remember, that was like a lesson learned. And this was only 2 years ago, maybe. Like, I've been in practice a long time, that I put my questions as, how often do you feed this animal? Like, is it 4 times a day? I used to be a huge proponent of senior dogs, especially getting lunch. And now I don't bring it up. Now a lot of senior dogs will not eat breakfast. And that just seems kind of regular. I don't know why. I don't know. So a lot of them will go to like lunch and dinner. And that's fine, eat in the small eating window. I think that's just fine. And, people all the time, well, I'm trying to feed them breakfast. I just don't want breakfast. Then don't eat them breakfast. Don't feed them breakfast. They put them on OMAD. They eat 1 meal a day. As soon as I still struggle with 1 meal a day here. Sometimes we still do it. I'll throw a day in where it's 1 meal a day and mix it up on them. Mix up so the body's not constantly used to the same thing all the time. So, you can always play with food and food times and meals like that. That's what I got. So, any other questions out there? Anything? Just the usual gang being quiet today? It's just water, swear. So Kyle had a random thought today. Those are the best, honestly. I know it's sometimes beneficial to donate blood to get iron levels down or to just be a good Samaritan. Can dogs donate blood, and can it be beneficial for them creating new blood? I know the answer to the first part, and yes, they can donate blood. I have no idea about them creating new blood. They would, right? Like, that would be the result of that. But I don't know if there's a benefit. I don't think there's a downside to that either, but I don't know if there'd be a benefit to doing that. But I know like less than this much on dog blood types, but there's like 6 different ones. And greyhounds make great. They used to solely use greyhounds for a very long time as blood donors, because if you've ever seen a greyhound, they have these huge, massive veins that are like sticking out, and they're skinny and they're easy. They also used greyhounds quite a bit in vet school for their anatomy, gross anatomy, where they dissected. It was usually greyhounds for that random fact. And I know I have a client that she takes her German Shepherd in. She takes her mixed breed. It's just called a pot cake. and they give blood all the time. And so they can. I don't know if it's necessarily beneficial. I don't know anything about iron levels in dogs or any of that. But they do need, but dogs have like 6 different blood types too, I believe, even more, something like that. They have a massive amount of different blood types. So they actually need quite a bit of different blood donors. So there you go. That's all I know on that. What else? Anything else? That was it. I just love the fact that they knew sled dogs that ate carbohydrates had more injuries. That's all I really wanted to share on that, which kind of brings you all the way back to if you wanted to go back down the rabbit hole of torn CCLs and ACLs, which I heard, I've talked about it, right? I heard at a lecture that the 2 biggest causes is early spay neuter and kibble fed dogs. And they don't have the ligament integrity, and that would lead you back to carbohydrates. So when I have a dog that my vet suspects it's a CCL and they're 2 years old and they're still intact, I usually, just by intuition, before I even see them, it's not an ACL, it's not a CCL tear. It's most likely pelvis rotation or a pulled quad or something else, lumbars are tight, whatever. Because if they're intact, it lessens the chance of that dramatically. I don't know what the percentages are. I don't know if anyone's done any studies. I don't know. Now, if they're still intact and raw fed, I pretty much say that's not what happened at all. Unless their conformation is just beyond awful, meaning they're super straight in the knee, they're really high in the rear and low in the front. I mean, there can be some conformational stuff that allows that to occur, but if they're intact, I generally don't think ligament tears as a general rule in what I've seen. So I had a Newfoundland come in named Doobie. In Colorado, yes, he was named Doobie. He was actually named after a lake in Canada, a Dumont Lake in Canada, which the dog was bred in Texas, which is hysterical to me. I'm like, who breeds Newfies in Texas? Names it after a Canadian lake and gets it to Colorado, and the shortened named is Doobie. Like, just hysterical, right? And he was like 15 months old. And he was still intact. He was kibble fed, but he was still intact. And she took him into emergency because he just pretty much could not get himself off the floor. Like, he could not push himself off the hardwood floor and get up, which you would see in senior dogs. You do see that in senior dogs when they get super weak, maybe some neurological, very stiff, but not in like a 15-month-old dog, even though this is a huge dog. Like, he was huge. And they were worried that he had at least one, if not both, of his CCLs were torn. And we got him in here. I worked on him. He was like at least 50, if not 60% better after the first visit. And so it wasn't a CCL. And he was intact. And he was 15 months old. And it's a noof. I mean, yeah, he can be bouncy and stuff, but there's really not a lot of action to get in there and tear those ligaments. So, but what I do suspect was going on was he was super, super, super weak in the rear. And at 15 months, well, how does that happen? If he can't tear his CCLs, how would he be super, super weak in the rear? He's only 15 months old. Well, this is where my, bottom of the puppy pile theory comes in. Puppies, there's a lot of, it's traumatic to be born. Okay. And so how many puppies were in the litter? Was he the firstborn? Was he the lastborn? Did mom kind of roll over and kind of crush him when he was 3 days old? At 4 weeks, was he on the bottom of the puppy pile all day long? Or did he at 5 weeks get a leg caught in one of the toys? And then he started growing and he was out of alignment, chiropractic alignment. and those muscles didn't form like they should have. And he was weak in the rear and tight in the lumbars, and his paraspinals along the lumbars didn't grow as they're fine. We added in doggy exercises, and we got him so good. So good. So that was, and it took a lot of work, and it took quite a bit of time because we're also dealing with a giant breed and we're dealing with a goofy puppy. But we got that back end engaged and built up, and the lumbar spine and all the paraspinal muscles came back. It was pretty awesome. So his knees were fine. He was structurally fine, but he was weak as they did not develop, and he wasn't using everything. And that's where the exercises came in. It was we needed to also get the neurological system engaged from the brain to the butt. Like, you have a butt back here. We need you to use it. And so where did that come from? Who knows? But it was pretty cool to see him and do real well with that. Do slick floors contribute to issues in the rear? Absolutely. Here in Colorado, we have hardwood floors everywhere in homes. And so if you play ball with your dog in the house, can you do it down a carpeted hallway, please? Otherwise, please stop, because all that scrambling on the slick floor, not good. Really not good. That is actually how you strain, sprain, tear a collateral ligament in your dog's knee, is that kind of stuff, especially inside on the slick floor. We need to clean out the hair in the pads. That'll help. Nails, short nails will help dealing with slick floors. But generally speaking, the youngins can handle slick floors very nicely. They should have the muscle strength to get up. It shouldn't be a problem. It's when they become seniors, it become weaker, they lose some of their muscle mass, that it becomes a bigger problem. So yeah, I mean, and if they're constantly going out on a hardwood or a slick tile and, banking around the corner to get out the door, yeah, it's going to contribute to generally different, even musculoskeletal patterns that me as a chiropractor will find on them. Like, it's funny, if I get a household of all the dogs and their pelvises are all rotated in this one way, I just know they must go down the stairs a certain way. They must run out the door to get outside a certain way. There must be some action in the household that they all have to go around a corner. They all do something, and they'll all end up with the same pattern of subluxation in their bodies. It's pretty cool. And I just fix it all. It's not a big deal, unless they're getting traumatically hurt, right? Which is always possible. How can you tell if a 1-year-old dog needs chiropractic care? Well, hi, Michelle. And since you're talking to a chiropractor, I think every 1-year-old dog needs chiropractic care. Just because they do dog stuff. That's why people, I think it's funny. Like, for years and years, I tried to get people to bring me their puppies. I used to do puppy first adjustments for free. That didn't even work. I'm like, bring me your puppies. Bring me at 8 weeks. Bring me at 3 months. Bring me at 8 months. I don't care. Bring me your puppies. Especially those giant breeds. Like, let's say I got my hands on Doobie when he came home at 8 weeks, probably would have corrected whatever was going on that showed up at 15 months. And that's not just me. That's just chiropractic. Like, we would have found that the lumbar spine wasn't moving very well. We would have found that the pelvis was rotated a little bit, found that, and just would have done that. And at 8 weeks, there's not a lot of force. There's not a lot of anything. And it probably wouldn't have been, they tend to be at 8 weeks. They're kind of like, oh God, what are we doing? And why do I have to sit here? And I'd rather go over there and chew on my brother. Right. But there's not a lot to it. And there's still a lot of cartilage. And so it's super easy to adjust, especially like a Newf, right? A Newfoundland, that's going to be 150, 180 pounds. Those are big boys. And so a general rule is if you're comfortable, even if you're not seeing anything and it's also get them in there. Because the chiropractor is going to find something. It could be a tight little thing in the neck. It could be a little tweak in the elbow. It could be, a little pelvic rotation. And I know I say pelvis is rotated. Oh my God, the whole pelvis is rotated. The pelvis is always rotated. In dogs, it's like a steering wheel. It's constantly rotating. And I actually check for 4 different directions plus SI dysfunction. So there's a lot that I look for in the pelvis too. So I always find something in the pelvis that's not, but when that pelvis is just slightly rotated, then you have stress on the lumbar spine. You have stress on the leg that's, rotated towards you. You have stress on the leg that's rotated away. It starts to impact everything. And so a year-old dog that maybe is going to the dog park, it's going to training, it's doing a lot of sitting, it's doing a lot of standing, it's using their brain a lot, they're running around on play dates. They need an adjustment because they're using their brain, they're using their body. Let's make sure it's all connected too, even if nothing is painful or ouchy. But if we can get that whole neurological system talking from brain to tail, it's just going to make continued growing, because we still have a little more growing to do at a year, even better. And plus, it's a new experience. That's the awesomest part, I think, honestly, is when I see a puppy at 8 weeks and then they come back at 8 months. They know who I am. They know what we're going to do. They're like, okay, you want to do some chiropractic? All right. I had a German Shepherd that I met at 3 months and then I think 4 months. I only saw those 2 appointments. And then I saw him like a year and a half later. And at that point, he had been doing some Schutzen training and he had to be muzzled for our appointment. But he sniffed me, he hopped on the table, and he stood there. I was about 1 of 3 people that could actually touch him. And that was probably only because I saw him at 3 months. But he remembered who I was and he remembered what we were going to do. I swear to God, they know. I swear. I have a golden doodle breeder that I see all of her puppies before they go into their home. So I see them between 6 and 8 weeks. We've been doing this for 4 years. It's been fascinating. And the puppies that I see at 6 or 8 weeks, and then they come back, let's say at 8 months, I swear they sit there and they're like, yeah, I've done this. And they're just a lot more comfortable with everything. So they remember it. And so I think it's also a really good experience for puppies to be handled differently and do something different like that. Plus, it turns on the nervous system. And a healthy nervous system will get your dog far in life. Okay, I got a few in here now. So Ashley, need to trim the fur between scouts. Kitty paws. I think it could help her hurts. Yeah, we didn't even think about that. But yeah, Scout's got pretty hoof feet. And that, getting the fur out of that might really help. Especially if she's scrambling to get away or scrambling to go after somebody. That might really help. Pug jumps off furniture a lot. Yes. Those little shits will jump off of furniture a lot. And thank you, Kyle. Maybe get some stairs at the bed, at the couch. If they won't use the stairs, maybe work on training a weight and you put them down. Every time you get up, because no matter how much we would hope they would stay on the couch while we just run to the bathroom and come back right at a commercial break, or run and get microwave popcorn and come back, they've got to go with you, right? So as soon as you get up off the couch, put them on the floor. My littles are very good at using the stairs, so I don't do that. And I'm trying to think, we got the stairs when we got Mo, but the stairs were here when I got Molly and when I got Torchy. So they just kind of always just use the stairs. So if you are getting a little dog, you're getting a small dog, get the stairs in place before the dog comes home. And that way they're always there. And that is always the way they get on and get off the couch. Get on and get off the bed. All right. And if they're already present, it's going to help. If you have another dog that's already using them, so much better. So much better. Now, do they always use it? No. The FedEx guy rings the doorbell, they're flying off the couch. I mean, like, there's just things that are going to get them so excited they're going to fly off the couch. But if you can minimize the jumping down, and the jumping down is more impactful, more repetitive injury, more chances for injury. And if they just insist or whatever it is, make sure they're landing on carpet that does not move. Nothing onto the hardwood floor, nothing onto the slick tile. Make sure they're landing on carpet. If you have to buy an ugly yoga mat or something so they have something that they have grip, do that. Same thing for the car. Jumping out of the car, even your big guys, if you can kind of help them down, introduce them to a ramp early in life, get stairs that work out of your SUV that they use to get down, because it's the down, down, down. Up, generally, if they can make the jump, is much easier on their body. So if they want to jump in the car, they can jump in the car if they're big enough to do that. But it's the down. I had a lady call me. I never did see this little Chihuahua, and she got me on the phone. This was so many years ago. She's like, all right, I'm not quite sure about this whole chiropractic thing, but I have a little Chihuahua that jumps off the back of the couch to the floor. And I'm like, well, could that be why he's limping? I'm like, yes. Yes. I go, is he landing on carpet? She's like, no, we just put in hardwood floors. I'm like, well, you need to cover those up with a carpet. She's like, no, I can't tell my husband that after we spent all this money to put in hardwood floors. So I never saw the dog. I don't know what happened, but I actually have had dogs that have always jumped off a certain piece of furniture onto carpet, and then they changed it to floor and they hurt themselves and ended up in for care. So it does matter on what they're landing on too. Got the stairs. Yeah, ramps or steps. People are generally in a world of hurt when it comes to ramps later in life. I think ramps should be introduced in puppy school. Just elevated, just walk up and down on them and get a feel for them. Just introduce. So when they show up again when they're 12 and you're trying to get them in your car and they're now, a 90-pound golden retriever, they're not like, oh shit, I'm not using that ramp. But because again, I think they have memories and they would go, oh, maybe we did do this before. I don't know, but just throwing a ramp up on the back of your car and then having your dog walk up it generally does not go well. Some will do it. Some are that easygoing, but the ramp is empty right underneath. It kind of bends. It's nothing that they see in regular life, right? Like they see stairs in regular life. They don't see ramps in regular life generally, right? And so they're very suspicious, and a lot of training can go into it, and most people don't have the patience for, oh, let's put the ramp on the driveway and let's walk on the ramp with cookies. Let's elevate it an inch. Let's go up, You can train it. Some eventually just get over it and use it because you just keep kind of dragging the collar and getting them up. I'm not recommending that, but there are like stairs that you can get that go up into the SUV or a higher vehicle. That tends to go easier. They're more expensive depending on storage and blah, blah, blah. But at least dogs have seen stairs, right? So I think that's the main thing with ramps and just throwing it up there. And then, your 12-year-old shepherd's like, what do I do with that? And most people don't throw the ramp up there and get the roast beef too. So you could throw the ramp up there, get some roast beef. Hey, this is, I think I might learn this. So get some high value food. Don't forget the high value food when you're showing something new. I know our human brains are like, this is going to be easier and helpful. Just walk up the damn ramp. Like, what's the big deal? But that is not how dogs look at it. And it does require some back end strength, like Ashley just said. So, yeah. So that's kind of the lowdown on ramps, and that if you have young dogs and you're thinking that, and they're big dogs, and you're thinking that might be a day that you need that, I would go get the ramp now. Show them now. You don't have to use it every single time, but start working with that. And it would also help build some back end strength. And it'd be something new and some training things you can do out when it's nice out on the driveway or whatever, and something different for them and, activate the brain. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so Kyle says he may have the opportunity to add a third beagle to our pack. She's very overweight and 6 years old. May have some joint issues. Any tips or questions we should ask? Probably not fed the best food. Really, pragmatically, what could they possibly tell you that you're not going to want to take this dog, right? So you're going to clean up the food, right? And then you're going to see where you land. Those joint issues may all disappear with the weight and with different food. They could tell you, oh yeah, we've been diagnosed with arthritis, and you may want to know if she's on meds and for how long. Of course, you'll find out what she's been eating. I would find out the vaccination schedule, heartworm schedule, flea and tick, all of that, and see where you land on what they were doing and if that correlates with what you want to do. But just be aware that this will be a different journey because she has a previous history of stuff that you haven't been doing with her, right? I have a black lab client, older gal, older mom and older dog, and they weren't actually going to get any more dogs, but the neighbor passed away, and this was the neighbor dog, and she promised him that she would take the dog. And she grew up, I think, essentially outside. Maybe that's not correct, but basically on like Old Roy and all the meds and all the things. And mom has her now and completely changed her diet, and she's on raw and has done all this stuff, but we still are running into issues, because of the previous history, and you just, kind of go through them as you go through them. Overweight beagles are rough. They don't like to let their weight go. So I have a client, they are also in love with beagles, and the last few they've rescued have been quite chubby, and they changed the food and they're raw fed and they're not dropping the weight. I'm like, what's going on here? So, the last one they just got very recently. So we'll see. We'll see if we notice anything else or if any other blood work is required or whatever. But that's exciting. So Kyle, the two beagles you have are two boys or two girls? So this one's a female girl and a boy. So you're gonna have two girls and a boy. Is your current girl pretty alpha or pretty easygoing? Oh, okay. So they already know each other. Well, how's it get better than that? Cool. I know Jessica's been asking for 3 of them are. Okay. Girl is an alpha. Okay. Well, if they know each other and the other girl is not, I like the boys. No offense to all the girl dogs out in the world. I like the boy dogs. They just tend to be a little bit easier going, and sometimes I have 2 boys that fight, so I can't, I don't have a lot of room to talk, but sometimes those girls get together. I can be bitchy. Yeah, Jessica's been wanting one, so good. Oh, good. You'll have to keep us posted. Yeah. I think we like our boys because the boys are all like, oh, Mom, we just love you so much. right? They're just super sweet. So that's exciting. Well, keep us posted. We all need more dogs, except for me. I'm one dog away from an intervention. Neely is too, by the way. What else? Anything else out there? And thank you, Michelle, for your question. I hope that helps a little bit. And if the 1-year-old dog is a pug, they really, 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 really need regular care, chiropractic care. Those pugs, sweet, darling little pugs, are put together so difficult. I think they're just so. I don't see enough of them. I really don't. But that pug structure, what can be going on with the palate, the mouth, the head, the cranial bones, these upper cervicals, how they move, all of that. Regular care would be great. And regular care in my world is, a handful of times a year. It doesn't have to be very intense, but it could really help with how they move and how they move later in life and grow old later in life, and all that jazz. Okay, random kitty question. Her name is Dolly. Oh, I've met actually a couple beagles named Dolly. I don't know what that's about. I love it. I actually love that name. That's great. Just don't tell me you named the dog Luna, because I will lose my mind. Ashley says her cats are terrible for their chiropractic adjustments. The last couple of times we've given them increasing amounts of CBD in attempts to help them calm during their appointments. See, this is a great question for Dana, because Ashley and I have actually already talked about this. Is it possible that CBD makes them feel weird and then they're more stressed and poorly behaved? Yes, I would love some input from everybody in the chat. I would have to say it's a possibility. We also have been doing the adjustments at home, and I think that's a factor in their behavior. But mom and dad don't want to drive them up to my office, my home office, which I get. Cats don't travel well, and then they have to listen to the cats in the car. And so Ashley and I are in a little bit of a conundrum with them. And they will drive. But I don't know. Does anybody have any thoughts? Maybe we should ask Dana. Let me check in with Dana. Maybe she's got some different information about CBD in cats, because as we mentioned here all the time, cats are very, very different. And maybe she has some information we're missing, Ashley. But yeah. And then Keisha asked if they have a preference for energetic adjustments. Okay, now that's a great question. But I think every cat would say yes, because they don't want anybody touching them. And that's probably not true. They wouldn't all say yes, but that's a great question. We could play with that too. Okay. Oh, awesome. Jessica said they talked with Dana on Friday night. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe we just need a different CBD. They're spoiled rotten. The kitties are spoiled rotten. But yeah, they're very stressed about the whole thing, and there's really, in our logical human minds, there's no reason for that, and they're not getting any better, because a first few times, okay, so would a catnip pillow toy help? I believe Ashley is generous with the catnip too, but she'll have to answer that one. Okay, try catnip next. So we haven't tried it. Okay. And I will touch base with Dana and we'll come back next week and maybe go over that a little bit more. CBD and kitties, maybe there's something just different there. Because I do know that they cannot metabolize certain medications dogs can because their liver conjugation is just different. So let's start there. Jessica says, Dana says there are different kinds for different circumstances. So definitely reach out. Yeah. And maybe we'll add in a little catnip. See what we get. Because yeah, you can't keep stressing them out either. But the three that are very unhappy with me and their adjustments are the three that play the most too and do the most wrestling and running around and all of that. So they have the most chance of, being out of alignment. And so we don't necessarily just want to give up too easily too. But we also don't want to keep stressing them out horribly too. So, yeah, awesome. Good question, Ashley. And I'm glad you brought it up again because, yeah, we really need to see what we can do with these guys. So thank you. Ashley's so sweet, but that's a lot of time if she does that. So we want to be comfortable. We want it to be easy for everybody involved. We want it to make the most sense. So those are some of the things that I always look at when we're talking about things for our animals. We want it to be easy. We don't, hours and hours in the car with each cat. I would rather give time than blood. I don't do real good at giving blood either. So Ashley and I are going to work on this and we'll keep you guys updated. Okay, on a side note, and then we're going to get out of here. I promise you. Did you ask Neely when she was on? I don't know if you made it on that night. I think you did. Maybe there's some I don't know if you use, well, I guess there's some homeopathics you could use for calming. Okay. We're going to bother Dana and Neely, and we'll get back to y'all. This will be one of our ongoing adventures, the cats in the Cairo. Yes, there we go. Awesome. All right, my friends. It was so good to be back here with you. I know I was off a couple weeks. I think I'm back on for a couple weeks, and then we're going to bring back one of the other girls. I'm going back to Chicago early March for more class, more animal chiropractic class, more neurology. So I'll have one of the girls, right? Neely or Dana, one of the professional women, be here for you guys, and we'll keep the ball rolling. And so I think they're. Yes, thank you, everybody. We'll be back here next Tuesday. What is that? The 21st, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Bring your questions. It's Tuesday night raw Q&A. We'll talk about chiropractic. We'll attempt to talk about cats, although I don't know that much about them. We'll talk about chiropractic, raw feeding, just, what I've learned over the last 20 years, and we'll just go from there. We'll have a good time. So I appreciate you all. Grateful for you all. So wonderful that you join me every week. And until next time, how much fun can you have with your animals? Bye-bye.